The crystal spires of Zephyria Prime reached toward the purple sky like frozen tears. In the highest tower, Empress Velthera sat beside a bed that no longer held her daughter. The room still smelled of the healing crystals that had failed to save Princess Kirnaya. They glowed softly in the dim light, their power useless now. The princess had been gone for 3 days. 3 days since the void drift finally claimed her young mind. The disease had eaten away at her neural pathways like acid through silk. Even with all the technology in the galaxy, nobody could stop it. Not the wise Arcturians with their quantum healing chambers, not the ancient Valdari with their bioneural implants, not even the mysterious ethereals who claimed to understand the very nature of consciousness itself. Velthara's crystalline skin had lost its usual blue glow. The patterns that normally danced across her translucent flesh were still and gray. Her royal advisors whispered that she was fading too, consumed by grief that ran deeper than the ocean trenches of her homeworld. Outside the tower, the funeral processions continued. They had been going for months now. Representatives from every corner of the Zephyrian Empire came to pay their respects. Ships filled the sky above the capital city like a metallic constellation. Beings from 1,000 different worlds walked the crystal streets, all offering the same empty words. Our deepest sympathies for your loss. She was taken too soon. May her light shine eternal in the cosmic memory. The Empress heard none of it. She stayed in her daughter's room, staring at medical reports that meant nothing now, page after page of failed treatments, test results that showed only decay, brain scans that documented the slow death of the brightest mind in the Empire. Kirnaya had been special, even by royal standards. At only 23 cycles old, she had mastered 7 forms of quantum mathematics. She spoke 12 galactic languages fluently, and was working on creating a new form of art that combined light, sound, and psychic energy. The girl could solve political disputes that had lasted for centuries, and she did it with such grace that both sides walked away feeling like winners. Now all that potential was gone. Snuffed out by a disease that no one understood, Dr. Halvex, the royal physician, entered the room quietly. His 6 arms carried a tray of nutrition crystals that the Empress would not eat. His compound eyes showed deep concern as he looked at his ruler. "Your Majesty," he said in his soft, musical voice, "you must take nourishment. The Empire needs you." Velthara did not turn from the window. "The Empire has survived for 10,000 years without me. It will survive a few more days. But the outer territories are becoming restless. 3 systems have stopped sending their tribute. The Corlin Collective is making moves near our border. Your people need to see their Empress." "My people," she said bitterly, "watched my daughter die. They brought their finest doctors, their most advanced machines, their most sacred rituals, and none of it mattered. She died anyway." Halvex set down the tray and approached carefully. The princess knew she was loved. In her final moments, she spoke of how proud she was to be your daughter. The Empress finally turned. Her large, multifaceted eyes were dim with unshed tears. Proud of what? Of ruling an empire that cannot save its own children. Of commanding fleets that are useless against microscopic death? Before Halvex could answer, another figure entered the room. Admiral Keshtar, commander of the Imperial fleet, bowed deeply. His insectoid features were grim. "Your Majesty, we have received another delegation request. The humans have sent a diplomatic mission. They wish to formally establish relations with our empire." Velthara laughed, but there was no humor in it. Humans. Those primitive apes who only just learned to leave their own star system. What could they possibly want with us? Trade agreements, most likely. Access to our shipping lanes. The usual requests from new spacefaring species. Tell them to wait in line with the others. I have no interest in dealing with primitives right now. Admiral Keshatar shifted uncomfortably. "Actually, Your Majesty, their diplomatic mission has requested a private audience. They claim to have information about the princess's condition." The Empress stood so quickly that her chair toppled backward. Her skin flared with angry red light. How dare they? How dare these barely evolved creatures claim to know anything about void drift? Throw them out. Throw them off the planet if necessary. Your Majesty, Dr. Halvex said carefully. Perhaps we should hear what they have to say. In my experience, even the most primitive species sometimes develop unique solutions to common problems. Unique solutions? Velthara's voice rose to a shriek. "My daughter is dead. There is no solution. There is no cure. Every doctor in the galaxy has told me this." "Yes," said a new voice from the doorway. But no human doctor has examined the case. All three Zephyrians turned to see a figure standing in the entrance. She was small by their standards, maybe half the height of the Empress. Her skin was a strange pink-brown color, and she had only 2 eyes. But those eyes were bright with intelligence and determination. "Who are you?" Admiral Keshatar demanded, reaching for his weapon. "Dr. Sarah Chen," the human said calmly, "xenobiologist, neural specialist, and chief medical officer of the Earth Diplomatic Mission. I apologize for interrupting, but I heard your guards discussing the princess's case, and I had to speak with you immediately." "Remove this creature," Velthara commanded. "I will not have some primitive alien mock my daughter's memory." But Sarah did not move. Instead, she stepped forward, and when she spoke, her voice carried a weight that made the Zephyrians pause. "Your daughter died of neural pathway degradation, didn't she? The connections in her brain slowly dissolved until her consciousness could no longer maintain itself. The Arcturians probably tried quantum stabilization. The Valdari likely suggested bioneural bridges. The Ethereals might have attempted consciousness transfer." The room fell silent. Dr. Halvex's compound eyes widened. "How did you know that?" "Because," Sarah said quietly, "I've seen this disease before. Not in your species, but in mine. We call it cascade necrosis, and until 5 years ago it was always fatal." She paused, meeting the Empress's shocked gaze. "But we found a way to cure it." The Empress felt something she had not felt since her daughter's death. Hope. It was a small flame, barely flickering, but it was there. "That's impossible," she whispered. "If humans had such knowledge, the galaxy would know about it." "The galaxy doesn't pay much attention to human medicine," Sarah replied. "After all, we're just primitives who barely understand our own biology, right?" She smiled sadly. "But sometimes being primitive means finding solutions that advanced civilizations never consider." Admiral Keshatar stepped between them. "Even if what you say is true, the princess is already dead. No one can bring back the dead." Sarah's smile grew wider, and suddenly she didn't look primitive at all. She looked dangerous in a way that made the Zephyrian's skin crawl. "Admiral," she said softly, "you clearly don't know much about human medicine." The room fell into stunned silence. Outside, the funeral processions continued, but inside the tower something had changed. The Empress felt her heart beating faster than it had in days. Could it be possible? Could these strange small creatures from a distant world hold the key to bringing back her daughter? "Explain," Velthara commanded. "Tell me everything." And as the purple sky darkened into night, Dr. Sarah Chen began to talk about miracles. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the center of the Royal Medical Chamber, surrounded by technology that made Earth's finest hospitals look like ancient caves. Crystalline displays showed 3-dimensional models of alien brains. Machines hummed with energy that could reshape matter at the molecular level. Yet for all their advancement, these tools had failed to save one young princess. "You claim to have knowledge that our greatest minds lack," Dr. Halvex said, his 6 arms gesturing at the gleaming equipment around them. "This is the finest medical facility in the known galaxy. We have healers from 67 different species, technologies that can rebuild organs at the cellular level. How could your primitive species possibly know something we do not?" Sarah walked to one of the holographic displays showing a Zephyrian brain. The neural pathways glowed like a constellation, beautiful and complex. But she could see the dark patches where void drift had eaten away the connections. "You're right," she said simply. "Your technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Your understanding of quantum biology makes our textbooks look like children's drawings. But you know what you don't have?" "What?" Empress Velthara asked. She had not left the medical chamber since Sarah's arrival 2 days ago. She watched the human doctor with desperate intensity. "Desperation," Sarah replied. "You've been advanced for so long that you've forgotten how to be desperate. How to try impossible things because the alternative is unacceptable." Admiral Keshatar snorted. "Desperation is not a medical technique, isn't it?" Sarah turned to face him. "Tell me, Admiral, how long have you known about void drift?" "It has existed for millennia," he replied. "Perhaps longer. It affects maybe 1 in 10 million individuals across all species. Always fatal." 1 in 10 million, Sarah repeated. "Rare enough that most worlds never see a case. Most doctors never have to treat it. When they do encounter it, they apply standard treatments, and when those fail, they accept defeat gracefully." She walked closer to the Admiral. "But what if void drift wasn't rare on your world? What if it killed 1 in 1,000? 1 in 100? Dr. Halvex's compound eyes focused sharply on her. Then it would be a plague. We would devote entire research fleets to finding a cure. Exactly. And that's what happened to humans. Sarah activated her portable data device and a hologram appeared showing a human brain. 5 years ago, neural cascade disorders were becoming epidemic on Earth. Environmental toxins, genetic mutations, even computer viruses that jumped to bioneural implants. We were facing the death of our entire species. The Zephyrians leaned closer. The human brain looked crude compared to their own, but the pattern of decay was identical to what they had seen in Princess Kirnaya. So what did you do? Belthera asked. What humans always do when faced with extinction, Sarah said grimly. We threw everything at the problem. Money, resources, ethics, caution. We tried treatments that our medical boards called insane. We experimented on volunteers who knew they would probably die. We broke every rule in our medical textbooks because following the rules meant watching our children die. She changed the hologram to show treatment procedures. The Zephyrians watched in fascination and horror as the display showed human doctors literally rebuilding brains from scratch. You destroyed the neural tissue completely, Dr. Halvex breathed. That should kill the patient instantly. It does, Sarah said matter-of-factly. For about 3 minutes. We call it medical death. The brain stops functioning entirely. No thoughts, no memories, no consciousness. By every definition, your medicine would recognize the patient is dead. Then how? The Empress began. We rebuild everything from backup data. Before we destroy the infected tissue, we map every neural pathway, every memory, every thought pattern. We store it in quantum computers while we grow new, healthy brain tissue using stem cell technology. The room fell silent. What Sarah was describing was beyond anything they had imagined. It wasn't healing. It was resurrection. That's impossible, Admiral Keshatar said. Consciousness cannot be transferred like data. The soul, the essence of being, it cannot be copied and pasted. Sarah smiled sadly. Admiral, with respect, you have no idea what consciousness is. None of us do. But humans learned something your advanced species never had to. Sometimes you don't need to understand something to use it. She activated another hologram showing success rates. 17% survival rate in the first trials, 43% after we refined the techniques, 81% in the final protocols. Not perfect, but infinitely better than 0%. Dr. Halvex was studying the data intently. These memory mapping techniques, they're crude but ingenious. You're essentially creating a perfect copy of the patient's mind and installing it in a new brain. Crude, yes, Sarah agreed, but effective. Sometimes crude solutions work where elegant ones fail. Empress Velthera had been silent for several minutes, processing what she was hearing. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. My daughter has been dead for 5 days. Is there enough left to attempt this procedure? Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been dreading. Your Majesty, I need to be completely honest with you. Your preservation techniques are far superior to ours. Princess Kiranaya's brain tissue is in perfect condition, but the procedure I'm describing has never been attempted on a Zephyrian. Your neural structure is fundamentally different from ours. The quantum matrices that store your memories operate on principles I barely understand. So it might not work. The Empress said flatly. It might not work, Sarah confirmed. In fact, it probably won't work. The chances of success are maybe 10%, maybe less. The Royal Medical Chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of alien machines. 10%. After 5 days of death. It was a ridiculous hope, barely better than fantasy. But it was more hope than they had possessed an hour ago. What would you need? Velthera asked. A team, Sarah said immediately. My colleagues from Earth. Access to your quantum memory storage systems. Permission to combine human stem cell technology with Zephyrian neural regeneration techniques. And most importantly, I need you to understand that this procedure will either bring your daughter back or destroy any chance of ever attempting resurrection again. Dr. Halvex raised one of his arms. The Royal Medical Council would never approve such an experiment. It violates every principle of Zephyrian medicine. Then don't ask them, Sarah said bluntly. This is a mother's choice, not a council's decision. Admiral Keshatar looked uncomfortable. Dr. Chen, even if Her Majesty consents, I cannot allow alien medical teams unrestricted access to royal facilities. The security implications alone. Admiral, the Empress said quietly, if these humans can bring back my daughter, I will give them access to whatever they need. If they cannot, Then it won't matter because I will have no reason to continue living anyway. The statement hung in the air like a death sentence. Everyone in the room understood that they were not just discussing a medical procedure. They were discussing the future of the entire Zephyrian Empire. If the Empress died of grief, the succession wars would tear apart 10,000 years of civilization. Sarah felt the weight of that responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was no longer just a doctor trying to save a patient. She was a human being holding the fate of an entire galactic empire in her hands. "I'll need 48 hours to get my team here," she said, "and I'll need complete access to the princess's remains and all her medical records." "Done," Velthara said immediately. "Your Majesty," Dr. Halvex protested, "this is madness. We should consult with the other royal physicians. Get second opinions from the Arcturian Medical Academy." "No," the Empress said firmly. "We've had 5 days of second opinions, 5 days of expert consultations, 5 days of advanced alien medicine telling me that my daughter is gone forever." She turned to Sarah with eyes that blazed with desperate hope. "Dr. Chen, you have 48 hours. If you can bring me a 10% chance of seeing my daughter alive again, then you will have given me more than the entire galaxy has offered combined." Sarah nodded solemnly. "I'll send the quantum beacon signal immediately. My team will arrive by tomorrow night." As she left the medical chamber, Sarah tried not to think about what would happen if they failed. The Empress was betting everything on a desperate gamble. The problem was, Sarah wasn't even sure the odds were as good as 10%. But she had learned something important about herself over the past 2 days. Sometimes impossible odds were better than no odds at all, and sometimes being human meant attempting miracles even when logic said they couldn't succeed. After all, humans had been defying impossible odds since they first looked up at the stars and decided to touch them. The human transport ship looked like a metal box compared to the elegant vessels in orbit around Zephyria Prime. Its hull was scarred from countless hyperspace jumps, and it shuddered as it docked with the royal station. But to Dr. Sarah Chen, it was the most beautiful sight in the galaxy. Her team had arrived. 6 humans emerged from the airlock, carrying equipment that looked primitive next to Zephyrian technology. Dr. Marcus Webb, the neural mapping specialist, wheeled out what appeared to be a collection of spare parts held together with prayer and determination. Dr. Lisa Park carried cases of biological samples that would have been illegal on most civilized worlds. The others brought computational gear that hummed and sparked with barely contained energy. "Sarah," Marcus said as they reunited in the docking bay, "please tell me you haven't promised these aliens the impossible." "Just mostly impossible," she replied. "How bad is the situation on Earth?" "Bad enough that the entire medical council voted to send us here with no questions asked," Lisa said grimly. "The Cascade Plague is spreading faster than we can treat it. If we can crack the Zephyrian neural matrix, it might give us the breakthrough we need to save our own species." Dr. Raj Patel, the youngest member of the team, looked around at the crystalline architecture surrounding them. "So no pressure at all then? Just save 2 species with technology we don't understand using techniques that barely work on humans." "That's the spirit," Sarah said with dark humor. "Come on, I'll show you what we're working with." The journey to the medical facility took them through the heart of the royal palace. The humans walked in stunned silence as they passed through chambers larger than football stadiums, filled with art that bent light and sound into impossible shapes. Zephyrian courtiers watched them with barely concealed disdain. To most of the galaxy, humans were a curiosity at best, a nuisance at worst. But when they reached the medical chamber, everything changed. Dr. Halvex was waiting for them with obvious excitement. His 6 arms gestured rapidly as he spoke. "Dr. Chen, your arrival is most fortunate. We have been studying your preliminary data, and I believe we may have found a way to integrate your techniques with our quantum preservation systems." The human team exchanged glances. Working with alien technology was always a gamble. Integration could mean breakthrough or catastrophe, with no middle ground. "Show us," Sarah said. What followed was the strangest collaboration in galactic history. Humans and Zephyrians worked side by side, combining technologies that had never been meant to interact. Marcus's neural mapping equipment was connected to quantum computers that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Lisa's biological samples were analyzed by machines that could examine individual molecules while they moved. The differences in approach became obvious immediately. Zephyrian medicine was elegant, precise, and conservative. They calculated probabilities to 14 decimal places before attempting any procedure. Human medicine was chaotic, experimental, and desperate. They tried things that had a 60% chance of killing the patient because the alternative was certain death. "This is insanity," Dr. Halvex muttered as he watched Marcus jury-rig a connection between a human neural scanner and a Zephyrian quantum matrix. "Your equipment should not be able to interface with ours at all." "Shouldn't, but does," Marcus replied, tapping the device with a wrench until it started working properly. Sometimes equipment just needs encouragement. Dr. Park was having her own struggles with the Zephyrian preservation chamber, where Princess Kirnaya's body waited. The technology was so advanced that it had kept the neural tissue in perfect condition, but it was also so complex that she couldn't figure out how to extract samples without damaging them. "There must be a proper procedure," she said in frustration, after her third attempt, some sequence of commands that activates the extraction protocol. "Perhaps," said a new voice, "the proper procedure is the wrong approach." Everyone turned to see Empress Velthera entering the chamber. She had been absent for most of the day, dealing with the political crisis that her daughter's death had created. Now she looked exhausted, but her eyes were bright with desperate hope. "Your Majesty," Dr. Halvex began, "the human doctors are making progress, but their methods are rather unconventional." "Unconventional how?" the Empress asked. Sarah stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we need to be honest about what we're attempting. This isn't standard medical procedure. We're essentially going to take your daughter's preserved brain, map every neural pathway while simultaneously destroying the existing tissue, grow a completely new brain using stem cell technology, and then hope we can transfer her consciousness into it." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. "And the chances of success?" "Unknown," Sarah admitted. "We've never attempted this on anyone who's been dead for more than an hour, much less a week. We've never worked with Zephyrian neurology. We've never tried to integrate human and alien technology on this scale." She paused. "But the alternative is accepting that your daughter is gone forever." "Then proceed," Velthera said without hesitation. Dr. Patel looked up from his calculations. "Your Majesty, with respect, you should understand what failure means. If this doesn't work, we'll have destroyed the last remaining traces of your daughter's consciousness. There would be no second chance." The Empress walked to the preservation chamber and placed her hand on the crystal surface. Inside, Princess Kirnaya looked as if she were merely sleeping. Her crystalline skin still held a faint glow and her delicate features were peaceful. "My daughter was the brightest light in the galaxy," Velthera said softly. "She was going to change everything. Bring peace to the outer territories. Solve the energy crisis. Unite the different species under a new form of government that respected everyone's needs." Her voice cracked slightly. "Now she's gone and the Empire is already starting to fracture without her." She turned back to the humans. "If you can bring her back even with a small chance of success, then you will have given me more hope than I've had since she died. And if you fail," she straightened her shoulders, "then at least I will know that we tried everything, that we didn't give up on her." The humans worked through the night, building something that had never existed before. It was part medical device, part quantum computer, part biological laboratory, and part desperate prayer. Every component was tested and retested, because there would be no opportunity for mistakes. "Neural mapping array is ready," Marcus reported, as dawn broke over the Crystal City. "We can capture every synaptic pattern, every memory trace, every thought pathway. Biological systems are online," Lisa added. "The stem cell cultures are producing healthy neural tissue compatible with Zephyrian biology. Quantum transfer protocols are locked and loaded," Dr. Patel said. "Assuming our calculations are correct, we can maintain consciousness integrity during the transition." Sarah looked at the hybrid machine they had created. It was ugly, improvised, and probably violated every safety regulation in known space. It also represented the combined medical knowledge of two species pushed to their absolute limits. "Dr. Halvex," she said to the Zephyrian physician, "this is your last chance to talk us out of this. Your medical council would probably have us all executed for even suggesting this procedure." The alien doctor was quiet for several moments, studying the readouts from their improvised equipment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that surprised everyone. "Dr. Chen," he said slowly, "I have been practicing medicine for 300 years. I have saved thousands of lives using proper, tested, approved procedures, but I have also watched patients die because our proper procedures were not enough. He gestured at the machine. This may be insane, but it is also the most hopeful thing I have seen in my entire career. Empress Velthera stepped forward. Begin the procedure. As the humans activated their impossible machine, none of them noticed the small crowd gathering outside the medical chamber. Word had spread through the palace that the primitive aliens were attempting something unprecedented. Courtiers, guards, and servants pressed against the crystal walls, watching history unfold. Because if this worked, it would change everything. Not just for the Zephyrian Empire, but for every species in the galaxy. The humans had just proven that death might not be the end of the story. The only question was whether their desperate gamble would succeed or doom them all to spectacular failure. The hybrid machine hummed to life with sounds that no medical equipment had ever made before. Crystals designed for quantum computation buzzed in harmony with human neural scanners. Biological growth chambers filled with alien stem cells pulsed next to devices that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. If the procedure failed, it would at least fail spectacularly. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the control station, her hands hovering over switches that would either save Princess Kirnaya or destroy her forever. Around her, the human and Zephyrian medical teams worked in careful coordination, monitoring systems that pushed the boundaries of what was theoretically possible. Neural mapping commencing, Dr. Marcus Webb announced. We're getting good penetration of the quantum matrices. The princess's memory engrams are more complex than anything we've ever seen. But the pattern recognition software is adapting. On the holographic displays, Princess Kirnaya's mind began to appear as a three-dimensional constellation of light. Each point represented a memory, a skill, a fragment of personality. The complexity was staggering. Human minds looked like simple drawings compared to this masterpiece of consciousness. Magnificent, whispered Dr. Halvex. I had no idea the princess's cognitive structures were so elaborate. Look at these mathematical reasoning centers and the artistic integration networks. No wonder she was so gifted. Empress Velthara watched from beside the preservation chamber, her crystalline skin flickering with nervous energy. Is that really her? Her thoughts and memories? It's a map of her mind, Sarah explained. Every neural pathway that made her who she was. We're copying it into our quantum storage systems while we prepare the new biological framework. Dr. Lisa Park was hunched over the biological synthesis equipment, watching as human stem cell technology merged with Zephyrian regenerative medicine. Neural tissue growth is proceeding faster than expected. The alien enhancement factors are incredible. We're going to have a complete brain structure in 6 hours instead of the usual 12. Good, Sarah said tersely, because the mapping process is putting tremendous strain on the preserved tissue. We're essentially reading a book while the pages are dissolving. The longer this takes, the more data we'll lose. Hours passed. The hybrid machine continued its impossible work, guided by technicians who were making up procedures as they went along. There were no textbooks for what they were attempting, no established protocols. They were writing the rules of resurrection in real time. Problem, Dr. Raj Patel called out suddenly. The quantum matrices are fragmenting. Some of the princess's memories are stored in energy patterns that our equipment can't fully interpret. Sarah felt her heart sink. They had known this was a possibility. Zephyrian consciousness operated on principles that humans barely understood. Some aspects of the princess's mind might simply be too alien to transfer. How much are we losing? She asked. Hard to say. Maybe 10%. Maybe 30%. The gaps are mostly in the higher cognitive functions. Mathematical reasoning, artistic creativity, emotional processing. Empress Velthara made a sound like breaking crystal. Those were her greatest gifts. Her mathematical brilliance, her artistic vision. Without those, she wouldn't be herself. Your Majesty, Dr. Halvex said gently. Even partial restoration would be a miracle beyond imagining. No, the Empress said firmly. It has to be complete. My daughter deserves to return as herself, not as some diminished shadow. Sarah stared at the fragmenting data streams on her displays. The human equipment simply wasn't sophisticated enough to handle the quantum consciousness patterns that made Princess Kirnaya unique. They needed something more advanced, more elegant, more... Dr. Halvex, she said suddenly. Your quantum resonance chambers, the ones you use for meditation and consciousness expansion, could they be modified to store cognitive patterns? The Zephyrian physician's compound eyes widened. Theoretically, yes, but they're not medical devices. They're spiritual tools designed for mental discipline and cosmic awareness. Exactly. They're designed to interface with consciousness itself, not just neural tissue. If we could route the complex memories through your resonance chambers while processing the basic patterns through our equipment, you want to split the princess's mind between two completely different storage systems, Dr. Marcus said incredulously. That's insane even by our standards. It's also our only chance, Sarah replied. We store the basic personality matrix, learned behaviors, and simple memories in our quantum computers. The advanced cognitive functions, the artistic abilities, the mathematical genius, all of that goes into the resonance chambers where Zephyrian consciousness can be preserved in its natural state. Dr. Halvex was already moving toward the communication panel. I'll need authorization to access the royal meditation chambers. They're considered sacred spaces. You have it, Empress Velthera said immediately. Whatever you need. The next hour was chaos as technicians rerouted quantum data streams through crystalline chambers that had been designed for spiritual contemplation, not medical procedures. The mixing of human desperation with Zephyrian reverence created something entirely new, a hybrid approach that was both practical and mystical. Neural tissue is ready, Dr. Park announced. The new brain structure is biologically perfect, compatible with Zephyrian physiology but enhanced with human regenerative factors. Personality matrix transfer is complete, Dr. Patel added. Basic memories, learned behaviors, and core identity patterns are stored and ready for integration. Advanced cognitive functions are stabilized in the resonance chambers, Dr. Halvex reported. The princess's mathematical and artistic abilities are preserved in quantum suspension. Sarah looked at the readouts one final time. Everything was as ready as it would ever be. The new brain waited in its biological cradle, empty but perfect. The princess's consciousness existed in fragments across multiple storage systems, waiting to be reunited with flesh and blood. This is the point of no return, she announced. Once we begin the integration process, we can't stop or reverse it. If something goes wrong, we'll lose everything. Empress Velthera stepped forward. My daughter has been dead for 8 days. If there's even a chance of bringing her back, we have to take it. Sarah nodded and began the final sequence. Around her, machines that should never have worked together began the delicate process of rebuilding a mind. Human neural integration technology merged memories with biological tissue, while Zephyrian quantum resonance chambers fed advanced cognitive functions into the growing consciousness. The process took 3 hours. 3 hours of holding their breath while impossible technology attempted an impossible task. The holographic displays showed fragments of personality slowly coalescing into something that resembled the original Princess Kirnaya. Baseline neural activity detected, Dr. Marcus reported with barely contained excitement. The basic brain functions are coming online. Memory integration proceeding normally, Dr. Park added. She's remembering who she is. Advanced functions are... Dr. Halvex paused, studying his instruments with amazement. They're not just integrating. They're improving. The quantum resonance chambers have somehow enhanced her cognitive abilities. On the biological monitors, the new brain began showing patterns of activity that were unmistakably conscious, not just alive but aware. The combination of human and Zephyrian technology had created something unprecedented, a mind that was both fully restored and somehow evolved beyond its original capabilities. Is she? Empress Velthara couldn't finish the question. Sarah checked the final readouts, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing. Neural activity is stable and increasing. Memory integration is at 96%. Cognitive functions are not just restored but enhanced. She turned to face the Empress with tears in her eyes. Your Majesty, I believe your daughter is about to wake up. The room fell silent except for the soft sounds of medical equipment monitoring a miracle. On the biological cradle, Princess Kirnaya's new body began to stir. Her crystalline skin flickered with the first signs of consciousness as her enhanced mind began to process the world around her. Against all odds, against all logic, against everything that conventional medicine said was possible, the impossible had happened. Princess Kirnaya was returning from death itself, brought back by the desperate cooperation of two very different species who had refused to accept defeat. The only question now was whether the consciousness that awakened would still be the daughter that Empress Velthara remembered, or something entirely new born from the marriage of human determination and alien science. Princess Kirnaya opened her eyes for the first time in 9 days, and the universe held its breath. Her crystalline skin pulsed with soft blue light as consciousness flowed through neural pathways that had been rebuilt from memory and hope. The first sound she made was a gentle humming note that resonated through the medical chamber like a bell. It was the traditional Zephyrian greeting for morning, sung exactly as she had done every day of her life. "Kirnaya," Empress Velthara whispered, afraid to speak louder for fear of breaking the spell. The princess turned her head toward her mother's voice. Her large, multifaceted eyes focused with growing awareness. When she spoke, her voice carried the same melodic quality it had always possessed, but with something new, a depth that hadn't been there before. "Mother," she said softly, "I had the strangest dream. I was floating in darkness, but the darkness was full of music. And there were small, warm creatures singing to me in languages I didn't know." Her gaze shifted to the human medical team. "Oh, not a dream." Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward carefully. "Your Highness, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. How are you feeling?" Princess Kirnaya sat up slowly, testing her rebuilt body with the careful movements of someone discovering themselves for the first time. "I feel more. Is that possible? Like my thoughts are clearer, my memories sharper, and there are new patterns in my mind, mathematical structures I've never seen before." Dr. Halvex was studying his instruments with amazement. "Your neural activity is off the charts, Your Highness. The integration of human and Zephyrian technology appears to have enhanced your cognitive capabilities far beyond their original levels." "Enhanced how?" the princess asked with growing excitement. Dr. Marcus Webb consulted his readings. "Your mathematical processing power has increased by approximately 300%. Your pattern recognition abilities are unprecedented, and there are new neural pathways that don't exist in any brain we've ever mapped." Princess Kirnaya closed her eyes and let her enhanced mind explore its new capabilities. When she opened them again, she was smiling with wonder. "I can see it now," she said in amazement. "The solution to the energy crisis in the outer territories. It's not about building bigger fusion reactors. It's about harmonizing quantum fluctuations in a pattern that resembles—" She paused, searching for words. "It resembles the music I heard in the darkness. The human music." Empress Velthara felt tears of joy streaming down her crystalline cheeks. "You're really back. My brilliant daughter is really back." "Better than back," Princess Kirnaya said, standing and walking to the chamber's main display. With movements too fast for anyone to follow, she began inputting calculations that filled the screen with equations nobody had ever seen before. "The resurrection process didn't just restore my mind. It connected it to something larger. I can perceive mathematical relationships that span dimensions I couldn't even conceive of before." Dr. Sarah Chen watched in fascination as the princess worked. "The quantum resonance chambers," she murmured to Dr. Halvex. "They didn't just store her consciousness. They linked it to the cosmic awareness systems your people use for meditation." "Cosmic awareness," the Zephyrian physician repeated thoughtfully. "The ancient texts speak of individuals who transcended normal consciousness to perceive the mathematical foundations of reality itself. But it was considered myth." "Not myth," Princess Kirnaya said without turning from her calculations. "Truth, and now I understand why humans are so remarkable. You don't just solve problems by thinking about them logically. You feel your way to solutions using intuition and desperation and hope. That's what saved me. Not just your technology, but your refusal to accept that some things are impossible." She turned back to face the assembled group, her eyes bright with inspiration. "Mother, we need to establish immediate research partnerships with Earth. Their medical techniques combined with our technology could revolutionize healing throughout the galaxy. We could cure diseases that have plagued civilizations for millennia." Admiral Keshatar, who had been standing silently near the chamber entrance, stepped forward. "Your Highness, with respect, the humans are still a primitive species. Their entire civilization is barely a few thousand years old." Princess Kirnaya laughed, and the sound was like crystal chimes in a gentle wind. "Admiral, these primitive humans just conquered death itself. They brought me back from complete neural destruction, using techniques our greatest doctors said were impossible. I think it's time we reconsidered our definition of primitive." Over the following days, news of Princess Kirnaya's resurrection spread throughout the galaxy like a shockwave. The impossible had become reality. The humans, those barely evolved creatures from a distant world, had achieved what the most advanced civilizations had never even attempted. Delegations arrived from every major species. Desperate to understand how death had been defeated, the Arcturians offered vast sums for access to human medical technology. The Valdari proposed military alliances in exchange for resurrection techniques. The mysterious ethereals emerged from their hidden worlds for the first time in centuries, seeking to study the humans who had rewritten the laws of existence, but Princess Kirnaya had other plans. "We're not selling this technology," she announced during a Galactic Council session that was broadcast to every inhabited world. "We're sharing it. Humanity has given us the greatest gift possible, the defeat of death itself. In return, we're establishing the Galactic Medical Alliance with humans as equal partners, not junior members." The reaction was explosive. Conservative factions from dozens of species protested that humans were too primitive for such responsibility. Progressive groups hailed it as the dawn of a new age, but Princess Kirnaya's enhanced intellect had already calculated the political ramifications and prepared solutions for every objection. "The humans earn their place not through age or advanced technology," she said calmly, "but through results. They solved the unsolvable. They achieved the impossible, and they did it not for profit or glory, but because a mother was grieving and they couldn't bear to leave her in pain." Within months, joint human-Zephyrian medical facilities were established throughout the galaxy. Humans brought their desperate creativity and willingness to attempt the impossible. Zephyrians provided advanced technology and cosmic perspective. Together, they began curing diseases that had been considered incurable for millions of years. Dr. Sarah Chen found herself appointed as the first human member of the Galactic Medical Council, a position that would have been unthinkable before Princess Kirnaya's resurrection. But she never forgot the lesson she had learned in that crystal chamber on Zephyria Prime. Sometimes the most advanced solution was useless. Sometimes you needed desperation, hope, and the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. Sometimes you needed to be primitive enough to attempt miracles. Princess Kirnaya used her enhanced abilities to solve problem after problem throughout the galaxy. The energy crisis was resolved using harmonic quantum fluctuations inspired by human music. Trade disputes were settled using negotiation techniques based on human emotional intelligence. Even the mysterious plague affecting Earth was cured using a combination of Zephyrian quantum medicine and human determination. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy learned to see humanity differently. They were no longer the primitive newcomers who had barely learned to leave their home system. They were the species who had looked at death and said no. They were the ones who turned grief into hope and impossibility into reality. Empress Velthara stood on the observation deck of her palace, watching human ships work alongside Zephyrian vessels in the space above her capital city. Her daughter was not just alive but thriving, using her enhanced abilities to reshape galactic civilization for the better. The Empire was stronger than it had ever been, unified by the hope that even death could be conquered. "Your Majesty," Admiral Keshatar said as he joined her at the window. "The latest reports show that human-designed resurrection facilities are now operational in 47 star systems. Deaths from neural cascade disorders have dropped by 89% galaxy-wide." "Good," she replied simply. "Kirnaya was right. The humans earned their place among us, not through technology or age, but through something more valuable, the courage to attempt miracles when they're needed most." As she spoke, a new ship appeared in orbit, another human medical vessel arriving to help establish resurrection technology on distant worlds. It looked crude and improvised compared to the elegant Zephyrian craft around it, but Velthara knew better than to judge by appearances. After all, that crude, improvised approach had brought her daughter back from death itself. And if humans could do that, she was beginning to suspect there was no limit to what they might accomplish next. The galaxy was about to find out just how right she was.